Welcome back to another edition of Arizona Wildcats Insiders Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hutchison, and we are gearing up for week 2 as Arizona opened its season with an impressive 40-6 win over the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, where Arizona was able to run the ball. They ran for 183 yards as a team, led by running back Quincy Craig, who had 7 carries for 125 yards. $125 right there, and a touchdown with the 54-yard touchdown run to really put the game not on ice, but put it out of reach for Hawaii, making it 14-3. The Wildcats would never look back. They got a complete offensive performance. Noah Fafita had a passing touchdown in the game with 161 yards passing. A little underwhelming in terms of the completion percentage, went 13 of 23. He got stronger as the game went along. And then he also had a rushing touchdown as well. Right now, he has 6th all-time in passing touchdowns with 46 touchdowns through the air for Noah Fafita. So an impressive feat there. I thought the running game was very balanced. You saw Quincy. I was going to say Ja'Cory Krosky-Barrett, but you saw Quincy Craig get a heavy load, 7 catches for 125 yards, got the majority of the yardage there. But Kendrick Risano looked pretty good with 10 carries, 51 yards, and the touchdown. And Ismail Mahdi got involved with a touchdown run of his own. So you had 4 rushing touchdowns from Arizona, 3 coming from the backfield. A little bit surprised we didn't see a guy like Wesley Yarbrough get in the game, who's been a developing freshman in training camp. The 4-star recruit has looked really good in camp, so I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see him there. I thought Arizona's offensive line did a terrific job. Yes, they gave up 2 sacks. Yes, it wasn't pretty, but I thought it was a highly improved offensive line performance from last season where bodies were just dropping like flies. So you had guys that weren't ready playing, like a Michael Wooten, who was playing on the outside tackle position last season. They moved him into guard. Now he's a starting guard for the Wildcats. And man, he looked good. I thought he looked like he was one of the better offensive linemen out there for Arizona. Obviously, you know what you got in Alexander Deuce, who looked really good. Ty Buchanan, who's terrific. Tristan Bounds looks solid. But I thought Michael Wooten, the progression that he's made from last season, even into spring practice to training camp to now, it's night and day. Because there's moments in spring practice where you saw him playing guard and you're like, ooh, I don't know what the hell they're doing here. Like, I didn't see him as a starting guard. I thought, okay, once the line gets healthy, which they're not fully healthy yet, but once the line gets healthy, there's no way in hell they're going to let him play guard. No, they're set on it. And you saw him get better throughout training camp. So I got to hand it to the big fella. He's developed very nicely. He has good range. He has good mobility there. And he's very powerful in the run game. So great development by Josh Oglesby and Brent Brennan and his whole entire staff. They did a terrific job there. The receiving position, they were banged up a little bit going into the game. Chris Hutchison didn't play in the game. He was the last-second scratch. Chris Hunter didn't play. He played the first couple drives, but then came out and did not see the field again. I'm wondering if that injury kind of not plagued him, but came up on him during the game. They probably wanted to take it easy given that they're going to be dominating Hawaii throughout the process of that game, and it's understandably so. And then Tyler Powell went down in the game early. An unknown injury. I think it was to the leg area, but again, it hasn't been disclosed, and there's no timetable as of right now for his return. And again, that's something that we'll probably ask Brent Brennan today during Thursday's media day. We're exactly a couple days, 2 days out from Arizona kicking off its second game of the season against Weber State. But I want to talk about the defensive performance. When you look at it, Arizona gave up 6 points, 0 touchdowns, allowed 290 yards of total offense, and 67 yards on the ground. Now, the 6 points with no touchdowns, Arizona did that in their last victory over Houston last season, beating the Houston Cougars 27-3. But I thought it was their best performance against a Power 5, well, not Power 5, but Group of 5, FBS opponent during the non-conference since the Wildcats beat Toledo back in 2010, when Mike Stoops and Nick Foles and that team went up to Toledo, went up there and beat them 41-2. So I thought it was their most impressive performance since that game against an FBS school in the non-conference. And then if you look at the rushing yards, that's the fewest amount of rushing yards Arizona's allowed in 2 years. 2 years ago, we saw one of the best Arizona defensive lines in the last, I want to say 15, 20 years. I think the Mike Stoops lines were a little bit better, especially the one with Ricky Elmore, Brooks Reed, Earl Mitchell, Donald Horton, and others as the backup role. I thought that line was a little bit better, but that 2023 line got better as the season went on. They finished as a top 40, I believe top 30 rush defense in the country. They looked tremendous, and they held Washington State to 35 yards rushing and a dominating 44-6 win over the Cougars after they went down and scored on the opening drive and missed the extra point. That was all she wrote. Arizona went on to score 44 unanswered points, and that's when that Wildcat team with Noah Fafita really took off. They didn't lose another game the rest of the season, ended at 10-3. At that point, they were 4-3, so what an impressive year. But I thought that was one of the better performances, and now you have this performance against Hawaii, 67 total yards rushing. However, there are moments throughout that game where Hawaii was able to run the ball. There are moments where it was 3rd and 14, and they ran it for 7-8 yards. You have to remember, sacks count against your yard total in rushing in college football. Pros, sack yards doesn't count against your rushing total. But in college football, it does for some weird reason. So Arizona had 5 sacks. So how many rushing yards did Hawaii really have? Probably near 100 or over 100. So when we talked to Danny Gonzalez about the defensive performance, we're expecting him to say, oh, it's terrific. He was not happy. He said he was pissed at half. He was not in a good mood, giving up almost 50 yards rushing at half. And he felt that they should have kept them out of the end zone. Again, they didn't give up a touchdown, but they allowed them in the red zone, and it led to 2 Hawaii field goals and some penalties, extended drives. And he even talked about, going up against a higher level opponent, that's not going to get it done. If you go up against a Kansas State, Iowa State, a Baylor, a Kansas, an ASU, and how well they're playing, again, Kansas State isn't playing particularly well, but they have in the past, you're going to get gashed. And I think that's what Coach Gonzalez is talking about, is if you're going up against a team with better weapons, with tools that can keep them in the game, you're going to get gashed in those moments. So how do you grow? Again, the defense, I thought, got better as the game went along. They're able to control the line of scrimmage as the game went along. But I agree with him. Yes, 6 points and 67 yards rushing is great, but it was a little underwhelming at times. They could do better. I think this is a deep Arizona defensive tackle unit. I think in the middle, they're very deep. I think Trey Smith's tremendous off the edge. And I like Chase Kennedy as an edge rusher, and we'll see how Riley Wilson does when he gets back. But I think they're a little thin on the outside, and that's where they can get in trouble. But there's potential for this line to be very good. Are they going to be a top 20 rush defense this year? I don't think so. But they can improve from last season. And now with Coach Gonzalez and the stunts, switches, and different motions that he pulls, they're going to be a very difficult team to go up against. They're going to be a very difficult defense to go up against. So I would give the defense a grade a B, a solid B. Room for improvement was good, but not perfect. And then they were able to create turnovers. So those were positives. But again, if you're going up against a higher level opponent, I think instead of giving up 6 points, Arizona probably would have given up 24 points, maybe 28. Because when you go up against opponents that have the tools, that have the horses to stick in the race, they're not going to get worn down as easily. So how does Arizona grow from here? I think you're going to need to see guys stay in their assignments a little bit better. I thought tackling was tremendous. I think they had 6 missed tackles the whole game, which is a very good stat in today's college football. And I think some depth when guys get healthier is going to be an added bonus for this defense. So do I think this defense is going to be one of the top 10 defenses in the country? No. I think eventually with Coach Gonzalez, it will be in a few years. But this defense does have a chance to be a top 25 defense. I know that sounds crazy after the year they just had last season, but a lot of that was injury. And now you have a defensive mastermind in Coach Gonzalez running the show. Again, Dwayne Aquina is a defensive mastermind of his own right as a DB coach. So I think you have the best secondary in the Big 12. You have a good, solid defensive line, and you have talent at the linebacking core. You have all the pieces to be a top 25 defense. Now let's see how Arizona goes from the Hawaii game to the Weber State game. And if I'm Arizona and I'm Danny Gonzalez, I think the goal should be no points. You crush every living hell out of them, 52-0, or maybe 60-0. But you do not want to give up a single point in this game. You need to make a point. So let's see how the Wildcats perform against Weber State. We'll be back and evaluate the defense at a later date.